Dambroso with 3D Politics, David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, and David Dambroso at Dave Dambroso on Facebook. Apparently, the mayor is solidly behind the live PD show. Critics held a news conference urging Tulsa to stop participating in the show. I guess you guys have heard about this. Senator Regina Goodwin was downtown today in front of the City Hall. Also, Gregory Robinson II, community organizer.
Wait. I thought Mark Lewis was our community organizer.
Well, they've got to recruit,
Competition?
No, they recruit. They got to get Gregory in there.
Barack Hussein will always be the community organizer of my heart.
One of the things, they sent a letter to Mayor Bynum Friday, January 10th, and they have some demands that the police chief must. One of them is intentionally utilize and rely upon data to drive their decision making through an equity lens and make data more readily accessible to the public. My concept is that this is a big fake fight between these pretense activists, and they're giving Mayor Bynum a reason to do what he wants to do anyway. The whole idea of nationalizing the police force is what they're looking to do. They're pushing for a national, they want to do community policing by going out and finding somebody nationally. They keep saying, if you want to make Tulsa the best that it can be, we've got to ship it in from out of state. The idea of making Tulsa the best is to show Tulsa as the best. We don't want to ship in the best to Tulsa to make Tulsa the best.
Who's claiming they want equity through data? Are these the activists?
These are the activists. Now, 4 people signed this letter. It was City Councilor Vanessa Hall Harper and State...
So Vanessa Hall Harper and the other community organizers would like to see 60% of the arrests come from the African-American community, because that's what you would expect if you look at the data.
Well, let me read who else was involved. Vanessa Hall Harper, Regina Goodwin, State Representative, State Representative Monroe Nichols, and State Senator Kevin Matthews.
Yeah, they're taking a page from the Tulsa School Board strategy of, we got to bring in East Coast people here, because we got to bring in East Coast values and East Coast socialism and tyrannical overlord rule. That's really what's going on here.
So they're also, instead of just letting the mayor do his job, and I was competitive with the mayor, it's not like I'm a big fan or anything, but instead of letting the mayor simply do his job, they say this hiring of the police chief must also be a trust building process. And I guess we're gonna do a whole other thing besides just hire it. And building trust is one of your core priorities, they say. In this letter to the mayor, we are deeply grateful to hear that building trust is one of your core priorities, hence the fake fight. This idea that they're going to demand that trust building process, he's already stated that trust building is part of what he wants to do. You mentioned other communities. They say over and over these concepts, Ferguson, St. Louis, and Seattle, and we must do the same. Let's see, Ferguson, riot, St. Louis, riot, Seattle going to H in an H bag.
Well, I'm kind of split on this because, taking advice from Democrats on crime, on the one hand, they're experts, right? Most of the violent crime and election crime is committed by Democrats. So I am kind of like, okay, maybe they know what they're talking about. But then you look at the outcomes in cities that have been run by Democrats for decades, and you've got the worst violent crime. You've got the highest poverty, highest drug use and diseases that we've eradicated in the industrialized world for like 1,000 years exist now on the left coast.
Again, community policing can only, this is from their letter, community policing can only be defined by members of the community themselves. Which is
criminals?
Kind of interesting, because then they followed up with, the mayor must conduct a national search for our next chief, which is, which community are you talking about?
We need another Deborah Guest running the police department.
Another reference, a national search is the only method to ensure that you have the best person in the country to lead the Tulsa Police Department. When did we all of a sudden get to the point we have to have the best person in the country to lead the police department?
Because Detroit is too big to keep in Michigan.
Now, they go on further to the future of policing and public safety, still from this letter from these 4 to the mayor. Oh, they're really going to insist that he uses the city's equity indicators.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's part of what he's doing anyway.
What equity indicators?
Yeah, and then also
what are
they? He's got the
buzzwords.
Oh no, on the city has its own equity indicators.
Reparations, don't you know?
Remember we did a show on the expiration date of zip codes. The fact that I actually know one person that has lived in 3 zip codes in her lifespan. Not one person lives in one zip code their entire lifespan. And they're saying anybody that lives north. In fact, they say at their press conference today in front of City Hall, they make the illusion that if you live in North Tulsa, you are black. And if you live in South Tulsa, you are white. And that's just bottom line. And
that's stereotyping. That's
gee whiz.
That's prejudice.
I know.
Who's practicing this prejudice?
Right. I got a lot of white friends. I know where they live.
Where do they live? In North Tulsa or South Tulsa?
That's what I'm saying. They're policed.
Don't you have a home in North Tulsa?
Yeah, but don't you remember how we used our white privilege at the Trump rally to have the police come to our aid?
Tom.
About an hour later,
I got my Cherokee
Tom,
card,
you're
too.
probably at least 2% African. So
put me in a dress, I look like Pocahontas. Boom, boom.
yeah.
Now we're gonna try to run a sound clip from this Gregory, the community activist guy,
the organizer.
Yeah, Gregory Robinson II, where now. Part of their meeting today was talking about how the police should de-escalate issues. We're not here to divide. We're not here to cause problems. He's talking to police officers about police officers. He said, lipstick on a pig is still a pig. Now, a pig reference is typically a slanderous term towards police officers.
That's right.
I don't think that's de-escalation.
Blue Lives Matter.
Also, they're conflating you know how they use these terms about climate change, where that's a redundant term? And then they'll say things like a food desert, which is an opposite term. Well, here's what they're saying now. They're going to they want the police to reject the warrior stance in favor of a guardian stance. Now, if you're protecting your loved ones with violence to protect your loved ones, are you a warrior or a guardian? The answer is yes, you're both.
Yeah.
The idea that they would suggest that there's a difference between warrior and guardian is a ridiculous redundancy.
I can't even go there, Tom, because I'm just thinking about all the clinically and morbidly obese people that live in these food deserts.
Yeah, well,
can't get over it.
There's a food Uber, too. You can have them come right to you.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, that's the big story there. There's a great story that Kevin Canfield from Tulsa World put out on this thing, so you should check that out. Once again, if you're just tuning in, Tom McKay, your host with 3D Politics, David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, and David D'Ambroso at Dave D'Ambroso on Facebook. You want to go to that? Once again, if you're just tuning in, Tom McKay, your host with 3D Politics, David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, and David D'Ambroso at Dave D'Ambroso on Facebook. You want to go to that Iran story now? I call it Iran.
We do have this. Yeah. Okay. He's biting nails. Let's go.
Okay, let's do it.
Now, I've never had a hard copy of an article yet, and I couldn't wait to slam it on the table, and I hope that's really just popping, you know.
Come on, Alex.
I've got it here. It's evidence, right? This occurred. It's on paper. Well, I mean, essentially just setting it up, we know about this airliner that was shot down in Tehran. So at first there was a mystery as to how did this plane come down. Well, now we know officially it was the Iranian government. And you have a theory on that, David Van. What do you think happened?
Well, this morning they admitted, oops, it was a mistake.
They admitted what we all suspected.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah. And, Trump is going to say what he suspects, but if he's got inside information, he's certainly not going to say, we know, because he'd rather them not know that you know.
This is one of these accidents like, if you accidentally wander into a supermarket and shoot 7 people. The thing is, really, even with binoculars, you can tell the difference between a 737 and a military
I don't think
aircraft.
they're looking. I think they're looking at a radar.
The radar is even more specific.
Wait a minute, no.
IFF indicators, all kinds of indicators. Okay. Even if you're firing a shoulder-fired missile.
Time for a little humble pie here.
They're indicators.
In 1987, American forces in the Persian Gulf did shoot down an Iranian passenger plane, killing everybody on board. And what did we say? It took us a long time, but we said, oops. Okay? So we've done what they've done. It's an oops. It's a screw up. We paid reparations. What I want to know is, are the Iranians going to pay reparations to Ukraine and to Canada?
Yeah, I guess from the standpoint that they're quite a bit behind us technologically, I guess you could make some kind of understanding to say that I suppose mistakes could happen.
These were Russian systems they were using.
From what I understand, the cursory
you're slamming
knowledge.
Russian electronics all of a sudden?
I'm just speaking the facts, folks.
Well, so there. I mean, I think
Gulf's like a season.
there's one thing when a plane is maybe 30,000 feet away from you,
Yeah.
way up there.
Yeah.
But when one of them's taken off from your civilian airport,
Well,
and it just took off, it's one of those things
They were
like
panicked from all the other incoming
No,
fire.
and Tom,
I don't
thank
know.
you. That's a good distinction, because our ships, both merchant marines and our military aircraft, were under continual sporadic assault coming from Iran as we were floating through the Persian Gulf. Okay? So when we see this thing on radar coming out of there, flying directly at us, we don't know what it is at that point. We did shoot down a civilian airliner, but at least we had an excuse.
right.
Unfortunately, with the Iran thing, we were not firing any incoming missiles.
Oh, in fact, Trump had called for
no fly.
a no-fly zone. He says, you know what? Any plane goes up in the air is in danger right now.
Right.
So Trump was showing more consideration for the people than the Iranian government.
Well, that's not a shocker, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, it's quite an amazing mess up to think that a civilian aircraft taking off. I mean, it just what was it, about 2 minutes after it took off? So it's not even
This
that
one,
high.
yeah, real quick.
So you look at the vector, like, hey, this is at our airport. This is, you get all this information on the radars. How fast is the object traveling?
Yeah.
How big is it? What is its? What's the IFF reading? All these things. You have to make so many mistakes to shoot off a plane that just took off that it's kind of hard to believe that it's a mistake. But I suppose anything's possible, and really, we'll never know what happened.
I can't even get
We'll never get the.
I can't even
straight
get no pickles on a number 12 at the McDonald's. I mean, I think it'd be easy for them to shoot an airplane down when they're panicked and incompetent.
Well, and let me tell you, my brother worked for, he was in the Air Force, babysitting missile silos in North Dakota during the Cold War. There's nothing more boring. I would think sitting at a radar and just staring for hours, and all of a sudden, oh, here he comes!
Right.
Here it comes.
Chance
It's moving
to be
slowly
G.I.
away
Joe.
from our civilian airport. There, we better get it. It's going at 1/3 the speed of a tactical bomber away from us.
But let me tell you, the guys who babysit missile silos in North Dakota, and they're still there. Cold War's over, but we're still there. The Air Force trains them to be paranoid as all get out.
Sure.
You're out rabbit hunting, and you come anywhere close, and it's guns drawn, because they have been trained to assume that you are a Russian infiltrator.
Yeah, haven't you ever been hovering
Better
over
say sorry.
over a link, over the heat-seeking finger pad? And, your finger just kind of drops down. You accidentally hit the nuclear link, and you're like, "Oh,
Whoa,
I think I just shot down an airline."
It's kind of like that. It's like, ooh, I accidentally turned both keys at the same time.
Yeah,
Like, how
that
did you
kind
do
of
that?
thing, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it
press
is,
on the brake instead of the.
it is a great tragedy. 176 people dead, and these things happen. There was that Malaysian. Remember, in 2014, that Flight 370 disappeared over the Indian Ocean. We
Wasn't
still
it
don't know about
371?
Maybe.
You guys can argue math.
I just were asking him, how do you remember these numbers?
The point was that plane was a Malaysian airliner,
Yeah.
but then not too much longer after that, right? Another Malaysian airliner was flying over Ukraine,
Yeah,
and it got shot down.
sure did.
And that it's just such a huge tragedy, but it's kind of more understandable when it's outside of visible range.
Yep.
And it's over a war zone. And I was thinking at the time, not knowing much about it, what in the world? Why would a civilian airliner, why would your path even be over an active war zone?
Yeah.
So, just a great tragedy, and goodness.
Now, this was, let's look at this in the broader concept of all these events that happened just within a few days. We killed the #2 military guy in Iran, right? And then they say, oh, we are coming after you, we're coming after you. And Iran secretly goes and tells Finland, knowing Finland's going to tell us where the missiles are going to hit. We get out of there. Iran wanted to look good to their people for, domestic consumption.
Save face, yeah.
But yet they really didn't want a war with us. And it gave Trump a chance to really show that he didn't really want a war either. Yeah.
And promised every day on fake news that he's trying to start World War III.
Right. And they said the same thing about Reagan. They called Reagan a warmonger, too. But he comes out looking good. The only thing, this has become a surrogate argument for something that a lot of us freedom, liberty conservatives have been asking for a long time, that if we're going to commit troops, let's have a real declaration of war that needs to come from Congress, not vested in one person. Because as commander-in-chief of the military, that aspect of the president's power is dictatorial.
Yeah,
and the only thing
correct me if I'm wrong,
holding
he's commander-in-chief, and he's got about 6 weeks, correct?
Before
he has to declare something.
60 days.
Okay.
So, yeah, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, yeah,
Okay.
about 60 days.
So he can do kind of whatever he wants.
He can torch the whole earth as long as he gets it done in 60 days.
Come back in 60 days.
And so we have a bill. This is an Oklahoma component. I want to finish up on this story. Is Senator Nathan Dahm just filed a bill. It has to do with the Oklahoma National Guard, which answers to our governor. However, the Constitution says that the federal government can call them up under president's order. Well, Nathan Dahm has filed a bill that's a bit of a nullification bill. He said,
shocker,
they can't be deployed to combat zones overseas without a congressional declaration of war or congressional authorization.
So even for those 2-month operations, he's saying you have to have the declaration.
If it's in a combat zone, if it's, deliberately that these people are going into a theater of war.
That is interesting how that would play out with the Supremacy Clause versus the 10th Amendment, because constitutionally the president does have that authority under the War Powers Act within that 60 days.
If it's war. But again, it takes more than 60 days to get our National Guard mobilized and deployed. Yeah. So you still have
I guess that would depend on logistics, but would that be the case perhaps in the future? Maybe not.
Yeah, the military moves pretty slow. I mean, we have a rapid deployment forces, but they're always federal forces. If you're going to start calling up the guards and reserves,
traditionally that's
years into a battle.
I thought because Soleimani was in Iraq that was part of what made him fair game. I thought there was there was an issue of legitimate logistics that they followed whatever law there is.
That's a good point. And pretty
he
much
wasn't supposed to be.
When you're a geopolitical enemy in a combat zone that's not your country, you are fair game. Period.
And
driving a Chevy too.
And we have over 10 years of evidence that the IEDs were mostly coming from Iran.
Yeah, Iran wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
They said so.
Yeah, they said so. Don't believe it, just ask them. They'll tell you.
We are living, to finalize this bit on the Iran, we are living in what I call the Trumpsonian era. It is a new era. I made that up from a friend I stole it from.
That's good.
I made that up from a friend I stole it from.
Yes.
And, the Trumpsonian era, I give Don credit for that. And the reason is, since 1979, 40 years, I've never heard Iran take ownership of anything they've ever done. I've never heard them admit anything.
Well, they are more holy than us, so they have a special dispensation to lie.
Regardless of anything,
God told them they could.
Look at them suddenly admit that they were wrong. It's a huge...
That is an amazing observation, Tom.
It's a huge difference than it used to be.
Okay.
All right.
We've got some big news. I was going to come up with some idea of a good excuse to tell you why Oldham's not here tonight.
This is the...
Holy smokes.
Good news on the battlefront from New Jersey.
Okay.
He's restocking his compound.
This day, I just got word from Oldham just within the last hour or so, and let me set it up. New Jersey, as Oldham mentioned last week, was set to give final passage to a bill that says, we don't care what your religious views are, we're going to still pump your kids full of vaccine poisons.
Right.
Okay? And that was coming into showdown. They thought they would gab it passed last week on Friday. Oldham left town last Tuesday morning, right after a show. I mean, literally within hours, he's on the plane. And he's been over there fighting this thing at the New Jersey state capitol in Trenton. Well, Friday, logjam kind of broke. They got the final senator to come on board. It was a Republican for this Democrat leadership bill. And so he said, okay, Monday we're going to have the final vote. Well, Monday came. Let me tell you, Del Bigtree with Highwire News. Del's been here in Tulsa. He's been all over Oklahoma and has helped organize people for vaccine choice here. He mobilized. He's got a network. I was really impressed. He had people inside the Senate gallery. He had a bunch of people outside. As the day moved on today, and we find out yesterday, a Democrat broke ranks and said, ooh, I'm not going to support this now.
It's really a bipartisan issue.
Yeah.
The Dems were the first to start the clamor. A lot of people don't realize that, but you recall, it was the liberals in Hollywood that started the anti-vaccine movement.
Yeah, really.
Jim Carrey and his wife, yeah.
The
Over a decade
ACLU
ago.
stands for
Yeah.
civil liberties. So is the CL and ACLU is civil liberties.
Right.
You wouldn't know it anymore. They're
I
trying to change
need to
that.
remind you, ACLU folks, what your name stands for. Just like the YMCA stands for Young Men's Christian Association. You got to remind them or they won't know. But let's get back to the story.
Only explanation.
So as the day goes on, the Senate is, working behind the scenes. Senate leadership, he's gaveling everything in because, get this, today is the last day of the legislature. Tomorrow, a new legislative session takes over.
Okay.
So everything that happened today, basically, if it didn't get finished, it's in the trash
Guys,
can. Gotta
everything
start over.
upside down in New Jersey.
So anyway, as the afternoon goes on, it's getting so loud outside that from the Senate gallery, I'm listening to their input, and you can hear the rumble from outside. They got bullhorns, they got drums, they got all this stuff going. By 3:30, it was about 6,000 people outside.
Wow.
By 5 o'clock, there's over 10,000 people outside. And they finally, they called for recess of 15 minutes, waiting for some bills to come over from the other chamber. Well, an hour and a half passes, and you can see the Senate president, with his pot belly, suspenders, and tie. You can pick him out of a crowd, and he's going all over, twisting arms. Finally, he's looking dejected, and he comes back in. They run 3 other bills, and they shut it down, and the place went nuts. People were starving. They were cold. They hadn't had anything to eat. I don't know where they went to pee, but we won't talk about that. But
well, you said it's New Jersey, right?
yeah. So
really anywhere.
Anyway, what ends up happening then, people are hungry. Well, there's people all over the country. I'm watching this live feed on Facebook that Highwire's doing, Del Bigtree. I ran on Sooner Politics, and then we've got a 3D Politics Live Facebook page, so you guys can find it right there. In this article, he's talking about it. There's all these people, all of a sudden, pizza delivery starts showing up from everywhere.
Nice.
Without even a comment. People who couldn't make it there started calling local pizzerias, send some hot meals down there.
Nice.
And there's crowds. I mean, it's 10,000 people. And back of the crowds are coming up, and they're just passing pizza boxes up over the arms of the crowd. Keep passing them. And this is just, spontaneous.
Right.
So we're watching all this, and I'm talking to Liza Greavy on there on Facebook, different comments. And she said, this is brilliant, organized protest. I am learning a lot. We've got some things to learn. This was textbook grassroots.
That's a humble lady
activism.
because she's executed some phenomenal
Yes, she
grassroots
has.
campaigns here.
Yes,
I
she
mean,
has.
she's deciding who gets elected in many races. That's how powerful her activism is.
She's
Yeah.
Brigadier General of the Mama Bears.
There you go.
That's our Liza. So when Oldham finally gets a chance, he sends us this. He says, "We won!" ! The bill is dead. The pro tem went to the media and said he was calling a special session in the morning. Well, okay, we'll see what he does.
Yeah.
But he needs a quorum of 30 and 21 votes to pass the bill. Unless 9 senators who voted no show up and grant him a quorum, this is a done deal, and the Assembly is not going into special session. So the bill is dead. That's what our David Oldham worked on this week.
Nice job. That's where it was at, fixing problems in New Jersey.
Yeah. Now, next week, get ready. Oldham's going to have a lot to share.
Good. He can tell us some of the ins and outs of how it worked to their advantage this year.
And you know what? Del Bigtree said, in liberal New Jersey, if we can muster the forces for individual choice, and you've got to be bipartisan because you've got Democrats who believe in civil liberties just like the rest of us, and we got to honor them. You make your coalitions wherever you have opportunity. But he said, if we can do it in this state, we can do this in any state.
Hey, if you're just joining us, we're talking about David Oldham, the one David who's not with us, works with and for constitutional grounds. I've also got David Van, Sooner Politics, and David D'Ambroso at Dave D'Ambroso on Facebook. We have, what's coming up now?
Well, I do have Crop of the Drop, and then...
Crop of the Drop is coming up later.
Okay.
I got to interrupt you because we got some breaking news.
Let's do it.
Wait a minute. What I meant to say is I have court...
court updates.
Court updates at some time, but we got a breaking news.
And Crop of the Drop later tonight.
It looks like Governor North, remember, make the children comfortable before you murder them after birth, Governor.
Virginia.
And Mr. Blackface in Virginia.
Miami,
Mr. KKK Blackface. And we know what's funny about that story, too. He loved to dress up in blackface. He was known as that guy. That was his shtick. Like, oh, there's Northam in blackface again. And, of course, a Democrat. Of course, he wants to murder children and ban your Second Amendment property rights. They have withdrawn their bill banning semi-automatic weapons in Virginia.
Wow.
It is withdrawn. They were no longer going to vote on it.
David Oldham, way to go. Wow, you're on a roll.
He's on a roll.
Man.
This is good. Victory
Start
breaking out.
Start working on truancy laws because we got to get those out.
Well, I mean, the thing is, a lot of good people showed up, and really, it's not the split you think. You look at the map, that's closer to the kind of contest we're looking at politically. 98-point-something% of the United States geographic area votes conservative. Votes for property rights, votes for the Constitution.
Right.
It's less than 2% of our geographic area that is responsible for the liberal agenda. And even in states like California, you'd be shocked how much conservatism is there and how much people are waking up. I mean, people realize what's going on in San Francisco, that it is a failed social experiment.
Yeah.
Liberals are starting to scratch their heads and wonder, is this really the way? And so we are on the cusp, I think, of a breakthrough, of an American political, a bloodless revolution, where we get back to constitutional values.
It's a beautiful system that the Founding Fathers set up where we disagree in the ways that we're trying to peel 1 or 2 Republican votes or 1 or 2 Democratic votes to change the direction of the country.
Yep.
What else? You want to do court updates?
Yes, I do. We've got 3 of them tonight, and then I've got some bonus material after that. First one, remember the Catholic kids from Covington Catholic School in...
Sandman.
Yes, Nick Sandman.
Nick Sandman.
And all the liberals that said, isn't that a punchable face? Don't you just want to hit that child in the face?
Okay. Now, the treatment this kid got, a child.
Yeah.
He wasn't even 18. He was with his class, his Catholic high school. They're touring the D.C. area after being part of a morning march. It's afternoon. They get their souvenirs. They get the MAGA hat. God, while you're in D.C., grab the MAGA hat, puts it on.
Don't recommend it.
They're waiting for the bus over at the Lincoln Memorial, and a bunch of black Hebrews start causing disruption.
Black Israelite Hebrews.
Yes.
The same group. It's the same
Israelites.
group, organization type that did the shooting. There was a shooting.
Yeah, they had a mass
my
shooting.
understanding.
Not the same people, but
same ideology.
They are a racist group.
Yeah, but let's get back to this. So then an opportunity comes for one of these North American Indian tribal, self-appointed, community activist? Do the tribes have community activists? I guess they do. They have AIM.
Tribal activists.
Yeah, there you go. Decides he's going to get his drum out there in the middle of it, and he comes right up to Nick's face, and Nick's like,
beating his
almost
drum.
everybody saw this footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You would think we all saw the same footage.
Well, if you watch CNN or MSNBC, you saw a highly cut version that made it appear.
Or Washington Post. Well, and those are the three that got named in an $80 million slander suit, defamation suit by this young man, Nick Sandman. Well, CNN wants out. They want out bad. They don't need this. They just settled out of court. Nick said, yep, we settled with CNN. He tweeted that. 31,000 people clicked like on his tweet. And they didn't say how much, but I don't assume that he's getting a FAFSA grant to go to college. I think
No more Pell Grants, huh?
I think Nick is set for life. They sought to destroy this young man,
He had a lot of
and
death
they
threats.
set him up for life. Thank you, CNN.
Yeah, what they'll do, the kids,
That's the best contribution to America.
They
CNN's
cut the
given
footage
us
to
this
make
year.
it look like Nick was the aggressor.
Absolutely.
And they played up this Native American guy like he was some war hero, when it was even questionable whether he served honorably or not. Or actually, there's I think, and I'm not sure in the details, but it was basically impossible for him to have served in the Vietnam War, and they called him a Vietnam War veteran.
Yeah.
And that was a dubious claim at best.
Oh, yeah, they're trying. So that's court update number one.
All right.
Number two is from here in Oklahoma, and it's posted on Sooner Politics on our weekend update. I had a close confidant and a friend of Mr. Tim Harper. Was in studio right here on Friday night, Saturday night, and we talked to him. Adrian Otap was in, and Adrian had, if you remember the video footage we did with the American Indian Movement people down in Lawton that were trying to shut down the Lawton stuff. Yeah. So Adrian has been at many of the same events that Tim has gone to. It's always been peaceful, always been non-hostile and everything. And I just said, okay, tell me what's happening with this legal issue that Tim is dealing with. And Adrian was able to give me, just from his own understanding, not from any communication he's had with Tim. Why is that important? Because Tim's under a gag order. His First Amendment rights are gone. In order to stay out of a jail cell.
Voluntarily, though, right? That's why it's legal.
Yeah. And so
Right.
It's much like your friend Rick Hubbard.
Yeah.
It's exactly, in so many ways, they're giving them the Rick Hubbard treatment. So he was in jail for a week on $100,000 bonds to spring him.
Well, that sounds reasonable.
$100,000. Not that anybody, there were no victims. There was no property damage. But David Prater said, this guy's starting a race war. We can't have him out. Yeah. Go figure. So,
Prater guy.
yeah, and so they finally manipulate and take advantage of, this is a working man. He's missed a week of work. He doesn't even know if he has a job now. So he gets out, trying to provide for his household. He works at Tinker, or he did.
Does David Prater know that Rick Hubbard's never done a racist thing in his life?
Well, we're talking Tim Hubbard, yeah. Tim Harper, yeah.
Okay.
Either
of these guys.
Harper Hubbard. So,
well, they always
anyway,
like to conflate it. That's a good conflation.
Yeah.
They always like to say anytime you're expressing or exercising your Second Amendment right, that it's somehow couched in racism.
Right. Now, you remember, our Eighth Amendment guarantees us the right to reasonable bail.
And is that subjective or objective?
Yeah. That's why we're supposed to have good judges here that call this crap when they see it. But evidently David Prater prevailed upon the courts of the Oklahoma County District Court. And in order for him to agree and the judge to agree, he had to give up, number one, his freedom of speech, no social media. Yeah. He had 20,000 followers, subscribers on his YouTube channel alone, News Now OKC. His Second Amendment rights, they had to, he signed out for them to take all his firearms. This man has no firearms for self-defense anymore. he is vulnerable. Now, you tell me who's in danger.
You look at these bureaucrats, these judges, unelected judges, and even elected judges, and it seems that the majority of them have absolutely no respect for our rights. They have an absolute disdain for private property rights, for the Second Amendment of the Constitution.
Right.
His third of his civil rights in the Bill of Rights is his Eighth Amendment, right to reasonable bond. And I'm telling you now, giving up your First Amendment and your Second Amendment are not reasonable bond.
Right.
He's lost
along with $100,000.
Oh, right.
3 of them. And now, here's where he's at. Tinker Air Force Base said, don't even bother showing up until you got this thing resolved. He doesn't know if he's ever going to have a job.
In a predominantly Democrat city, I mean, your bail will be set lower for murder.
Now, on Facebook, E Pluribus OTAP has agreed that if some of our viewers and friends of Tim Harper want to communicate just any questions, any concerns, any offers for help of, hey, could you use this? Do you need this? You know, what can I do to help? Just send a message on E Pluribus OTAP. And I told Adrian OTAP, you know, I would pass this along to our subscribers and viewers to be a part of that. So, and I think that's very important because this guy has been on the line protecting your rights, my rights.
Sure.
And now we got to
I'm glad he does it, so I don't have to.
Okay, third court update. This one's right back here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. One of these candidates for mayor. Can you believe it? Paul Tay has been arrested, convicted for outraging the public morals, and that he did it for publicity, and they're sentencing him to 9 months in jail and a $500 fine.
Well, the prosecutor is just pursuing a completely unconstitutional argument and tripe.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's sort of like a red herring. It's a non sequitur. It doesn't make sense. Well, they're saying that essentially his intent was wrong.
Well, to outrage our morals.
They're trying to divine his intent, which is impossible.
Yes.
And then they're saying that he requires some kind of reason they approve of to express his First Amendment right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, both are ridiculous.
They don't agree with your reason, then your free speech doesn't matter.
Now, first of all, I'll have to say, I just don't agree with Paul Tay in a whole lot. I don't like what he was doing. I think it's ridiculous and insane.
Yeah.
But under the Constitution, he has an absolute right to do what he did.
Yeah, well, unoffensive speech doesn't need a First Amendment protecting it. Right? It's offensive speech. Here's how I put it, and I posted this up on 3D Politics. I said, well, sadly, the Tulsa District Court is playing right into Paul Tay's hands again.
Paul Tay's outsmarted them again.
This genius nutcase will likely win a landmark ruling in his appeal, and he needs to appeal this. Because this law is so horribly vague and arbitrary that it was used 50 years ago to keep black men from dating white women.
That's not arbitrary.
No black man 50 years ago stood in traffic with a plastic dildo saying, you know, the things
that's the history they taught you, Tom.
No. That's right. My white privilege education.
Now, and I talked to Al Gerhardt, Sooner Tea Party.
And Al loves Paul.
And,
Paul and Al are great friends.
They're
very close.
Let me say this.
Very close.
Al said when he was charged with all this blackmail of a state senator and they were trying to get him on wire crimes and everything, well, they were trying to plea bargain with him. And this was David Prater. His people plea bargaining.
We'll take just one of your fingers,
and
Al.
You know what they offered him? They offered Al Gerhardt, we will drop this down to one charge, outraging public morals.
That's what they got Socrates on, too.
And Al said it to me this way, and I thought he had some good insight. And Al's got a lot of friends in law and officers of the court. He said, when they don't have a good case on a specific law, and by law I mean it says you can't, expose your genitals. That's a specific thing, right? This is their catch-all thing that they only use in plea bargaining because they never bring this charge to a jury trial. The reason is there's a high likelihood if it ever gets put to a criminal case, it will likely be overturned as unconstitutionally vague.
The Supreme Court.
So Paul may become legendary.
He's already legendary.
Yeah.
He's the most famous Tulsan on the internet.
Well, next to Biker Fox.
Yeah.
You know?
No, look at Paul Tay's video
I
on
didn't
YouTube.
know you knew Biker.
Biker Fox is pretty famous.
Biker.
He looks like Benjamin Franklin with
wreck.
form-fitting biker clothes.
After he wrecks, people come to his rescue. He says, "No, that was a stunt."
But YouTube Paul Tay debate, Tay. I think he's got millions of views on this. But how do you even compete against this guy? He's a genius, Tom. I don't know that you should run against
Tom,
him.
if this show doesn't work, I want you to go back into stage productions, bring out your obnoxious party guests, and for intermission, we need to do a stage show dance-off between Paul Tay and Biker Fox right there at Kane's Ballroom.
I'd rather have a bike race. Keep going, guys. Keep going.
All right, what were you saying?
I was saying Paul Tay has a flaw in his marketing model. His price point is way too low.
Yeah.
So, for $1, you're never going to make it on $1.
Yeah, I know. Okay, but those were my 3 updates, and I got this thing about, you heard of trick or treat. Have you ever heard of bicycles or baseball bats?
Oh, yeah. I heard this is the bicycle baseball bat beating.
You
right?
snare people, right, with a tasty, a delicious, irresistible bicycle.
No, hold on. I'm not done with the Paul Tay thing. Because first of all, you promoted last week that he was going to be at this marijuana debate with a table set up front.
Yeah, that's next Tuesday night. We'll be there.
Next Tuesday night. We're going to be there for this marijuana debate. Will he have an ankle bracelet on, or is Paul Tay going to have a table there?
He might be wearing a helmet.
Will he have any adult accessories?
I'm just saying, is he going to be there?
I don't know if Paul's got people who are going to show up, but I assume he's already serving. I think he's already serving at the David
He was asking to be
Mosque.
serviced. He wasn't servicing anybody.
Okay, I walked into that.
Okay, so now the other thing about the Paul, so I don't expect Paul Tay in person at the marijuana debate.
I doubt it
on Tuesday.
But when I was talking to some of the lawmakers, I said, look, we have to plan for him to be there.
I don't care if he's there. Okay, go ahead.
Well, and if we make an accommodation with certain requirements, and if he doesn't meet those requirements, we get to kick him out.
Don't be arrested.
Yeah, well, my thing is, Paul, don't try to steal the show, and we'll let you have your table set up in the back. And that was my deal.
My question is a lot more simple than that. Is he still going to have people show up with a table? Or is his arrest mean he's no longer participating in the...
No, I think the proponents of 808, certainly they're still filed.
Him.
They still have... Well, he filed it.
Okay, so 808's going to be there whether he's there represented or not.
Yeah, usually if 1 or 2 people file it, but there's a whole organization behind an idea when you're going to put it to a state question.
Okay, so the last thing I want to say about Paul Tay, and this is really a mistake in my opinion about law enforcement. If they can't arrest a guy and charge him for outraging public decency or whatever, they should have arrested him over the last 10 years for causing traffic backup and problems. That was literally a public safety hazard. They should have arrested him then.
Yeah, I know. It's just how do you... the guy's going to be constantly a public nuisance. He just is. And the guy is genius at walking up to the line without going over. I don't know why you keep
saying just not genius. It doesn't take a genius for me to take a monkey wrench and knock over a house of cards.
Keep in mind, full disclosure, Paul is Tom's political opponent.
Okay, no. To me, genius is not...
I beat him handily.
Genius is not a compliment in my book. I work with a lot of mentally ill who are geniuses, okay? There's still a danger. Okay?
I wouldn't suggest what he does is suck my dick for $1 is not the words of a genius. Okay? I'm sorry.
There you said it.
I'm just sorry. Yeah, you're going to keep pushing the genius routine.
No, I'm talking about all of the antics he's done over the decades. He has been really good at just bringing it right up to the edge of the cliff without that thing that ends him
he's an instigator.
being down in Big
He's
Mac.
like a
You know?
professional instigator.
Yeah. So yeah, there's
I
problems.
totally disagree. I mean, you know,
Well,
He does seem to be unstable and
Anybody-
very
thank you.
difficult to work
But see,
with.
you can have a genius who's very unstable,
Yeah.
and I think Paul
He's
Tay
the opposite of
is
the
that
president.
he's the illustration in the dictionary.
stable
He's a
genius.
very unstable genius.
Unstable genius. Yes. Yes.
Unstable genius, Paul Tay. Stable genius, President
There you
Trump.
go. There you go.